Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm your host, Martha Lou Wheatley-Billeter. My guest today is John Dickson, Chief Operations Officer for Spokane County Government. John, welcome to Spokane County Spotlight.
Thank you, Martha Lou.
Now, before you came to local government, your background actually began in the private sector. Could you elaborate on that, and how did it prepare you for local government?
Yeah, well, my background actually began here in Spokane. I am a Lewis and Clark graduate from years ago. Then I decided to go to the University of Washington. I got my mechanical engineering degree from there. And thankfully, in 1985, Boeing was hiring. So I spent 22 great years back there at Boeing. I was on the military side of Boeing. And I was blessed to have worked on projects like the B-2 bomber. We built the wings and the aft center section for it. The F-22 Raptor, spent a lot of time building the wings and the aft fuselage. And a little bit later in my career, got to spend some time working on the 787 project. These military fighters and bombers I worked on used a lot of these plastic materials, advanced composite materials. And when the 787 was being designed, they designed a lot of this lighter weight composite materials in it, as opposed to aluminum. So they pulled a lot of us from the military side to work on the commercial side to design that. And during that time, in the early 90s, Boeing got involved in this thing called lean, continuous improvement. How do we keep improving our processes to drive down costs, to drive up quality? And so it's been fun for me to learn how to lead that more and more effectively over the years.
Well, okay, now that you've mentioned lean management, what exactly is it?
What is lean?
Yes.
Yes. Lean is a term that was coined back in late 80s, early 90s. A couple MIT professors went back to Toyota in Japan, and they watched what this company was doing very efficiently, very effectively in making cars. And they coined the term lean. It came out in a book called The Machine That Changed the World. So for the last 20 plus years, we've been utilizing this term called lean. What it really means, first off, for corporations, for government agencies, for nonprofits, who's your customer? You have to understand who your customer is and what they're asking. What do they really want from a price perspective, from a quantity, from a quality? So it's really, first off, knowing what your customer wants. And now that you know what your customer wants, how do you constantly do that better and better? Looking at processes, and whenever you study a lot of your processes, for example, maybe it's from the kind of getting a permit to some folks here in Spokane County. Well, how long does it take our customers, in this case, to get that permit? It might take weeks. Well, okay. My guess is that many of our customers might want it in less time than that. So you set that goal. You study the time it takes you to do that, and you start eliminating then steps that really don't add value, not in the eyes of us, but in the eyes of our customer. And what's really key with it is allowing those people that are closest to our customers, which is our frontline staff, allow them to lead a lot of these process improvement activities.
Okay, so you're talking about applying lean management to local government, but to help explain lean management a little bit more, could you tell us about the successes you've had in the past?
Sure. And they're not just my successes. These are teams I was able to lead. But when I was able to lead the operations of the F-22 Raptor, this is back in Boeing in Seattle. We built the wings and the aft fuselage for the Raptor. And back in the late 90s, we were producing about one ship set a month. That means that's two wings and one aft fuselage. And over about a 4-year time frame, we were going to have to triple our rate. We were going to have to go from 1 a month to 3 a month. And during that time, we also found out that our assembly center, our space where we were making these units, was going to shrink. So we had to, over this 4-year time frame, we had to figure out how we're going to triple our rate without hiring more people in less space.
Well, that doesn't even make any sense, because if you're going to triple your rate, you would have to have a larger workforce, maybe larger facilities, more equipment, more inventory.
And that's current thinking. We weren't able to do that. And I'm very glad that we weren't able to do that. So it really made us think hard on how are we going to do these things radically differently. And just to cut to the chase, over this 4-year time frame, it was taking us to build the wings about 168 days at 1 a month and we got it all the way down to 35 days, greater than a 70% reduction in flow time with the same staff, radically decreased the amount of labor hours it took to build them. And for the aft fuselage, we went down from about 135 days to only 35 days to make them. And during this time frame, Boeing had created what was called a lean management assessment. And it was an assessment that they were assessing all different organizations across the Boeing company, all across the Boeing company. And we were very proud in 2003 and 2004 to be recognized across Boeing as the leanest organization within the entire company. So we were very proud of that.
Well, but if you have government contracts, it's not just the quantity, it's also the quality.
It is.
So in order to be successful, lean management would have to address that as well.
Correct. We use processes in government, we use it in private industry for products and for services. It applies equally the same across them. The difference I found is in manufacturing, you're able to see the product. And as different products flow through, you can see trend data on how your quality is getting better, how your hours are going down per unit. It's tougher at times in service because you can't really see it as much. That's why we have such a huge reliance in lean on the customer's voice. They keep telling us how effective we are doing it or not. And when I was at WorkSource Spokane, when I was able to move back here from Seattle, the first job I had coming back was running an organization down in Plummer, Idaho for Berg. It's called Berg Integrated Systems. And we built these expandable shelters for the U.S. military and these huge fuel bladders. We applied it on a startup company. And then I was able to move to government to WorkSource Spokane. And one of our big successes there is this was just as we were coming out of the recession, and WorkSource Spokane is a one-stop employment center region run by the state. And during my time there from about 2010 to 2012, we saw that although the economy was getting better, we saw that our customer visits went up by almost 30%. And that was one of our measurements, was our people voting with their feet by coming into our center, because it wasn't always mandatory that you had to come to our center. So we saw a drastic increase in the influx of people. During this time frame, I also lost 15% of our staff, right? When I got there in 2010, there was quite a bit of customer waiting, unfortunately. Some folks would have to wait 15, 20 minutes, up to an hour sometimes. And as we listened to the customer made it very clear, we don't want to wait here. So we set a goal. We're going to eliminate any waiting, right? And we did. We found a way to completely eliminate waiting while driving up the amount of folks coming to our center.
Well, the fact that you did that coming from the private sector and going into a government agency or state agencies, impressive. But what were they waiting for? What would take an hour?
Service, just service. Folks can show up at any time at WorkSource. It's open from 8 to 5. Wonderful agency. And there was just times where many of my staff would be, every one of my staff would be with somebody. And that would cause the waiting. The way we eliminated waiting is we actually put in a scheduling system so that everybody could know when their appointment was, even if it was the next day. And we were a little fearful that if we didn't have openings during the day and a person would be in, if we scheduled them for the next day, that they might not show up. Well, as we measured at a 94, 95% rate, they showed up for their appointment. So that's just a way we eliminated waiting. And I just got to reiterate, it was the voice of the customer that we kept listening to. And then, just like we did at Boeing, empowered my frontline staff. And how are we going to do this? What do you think? You know this business better than I know this business. Try. Do it. But you're constantly measuring also. And we're constantly gauging. We had a customer satisfaction card, 1 through 5. 3 was they got the services they expected. 5 was exceptional. 1 wasn't very good. And we kept monitoring by day, by hour, by week, by workshop. So our customer, remember, Lean is really focused on what the customer is telling us, kept telling us where we had to focus our next improvement activities.
Well, did the employees find that intimidating?
Initially, all the measurements. What I found is that you got to make things very visual so that your staff can see it. And so there's a lot of measurements that take place in organizations, that I like to run, where you're constantly watching how things are going, the results, the outcomes of what you're doing. I had a boss at Boeing once who told me, he told me, John, at what level of an organization are the vast majority of business decisions really made? I said, well, at my level. He says, well, that's why you're struggling some. But he says, your frontline staff, they're the ones who make most of the business decisions. John, are you assuring that they know that they're making great business decisions every day, every week, every month? So that's how we started learning about how to really focus on visual management, make things visual every day, see what happened yesterday, what went good, what didn't go so good, and then very professionally deal with it. And these are just ways that, and I have to reiterate, my frontline staff at WorkSource Spokane eliminated the waiting, not me. I just facilitated the process, enabled them to do what they thought should be done.
So you implemented the principles of lean management at WorkSource. What were the end results?
Well, as we watched those customer service ratings from when we started in 2010 to 2012, and that's when I left there, they raised by 40%, over 40%, the customer service ratings went up. What was really important, though, is we are an employment agency, and one of the key metrics we wanted to measure was time to employment. How long, once a person enters our center, are they getting employed? So we really, especially in our Work First program, wonderful folks that we're working with in the Work First, the Welfare to Work, great people. So we started measuring how long would it take these folks to get back to work, and we saw as our customer service ratings went up and up and up, the time to employment started to come down, which is good. And we actually in Work First, over about a 2-year time period, reduced that by 25%, the time to get employed. So that was another result. And coming from private industry also, we're focused obviously a lot on cost, profit, cash flow. And when I came to the state government, I saw that we were spending a lot of money at times on pencils and papers. And so we set a big goal. By over 20%, let's reduce our spending. And I'm really proud that over a 2.5-year time period, we underspent by 24% on average, which equated to $416,000 just in our consumables to reduce in spending. So.
Oh, now that must have gotten the attention of the state.
It did. It did. It did. And what I was really happy with the state is when they saw these costs coming down and down and down, the state was sincerely interested in, what are you doing out there? How are you doing this? And really receptive to the things we were doing. So, and I was really happy under Governor Gregoire. She started pushing in 2012 lean initiatives. The state now is spending a lot of money, bringing in consultants and mandating across state government agencies. So I'm really happy seeing what I'm seeing in government. We got a ways to go, but we're making great progress.
Okay, now that was with a state agency. Undoubtedly, you are a proponent of lean thinking in government. So why is it so important? And it sounds like it could work at the state and at the local level?
It can, and it is. It is. And when I got to the county this past March, I went around, got to know most of the different department heads and departments. Incredible people. I mean, the staff working hard. But as I would watch through my experience, we were doing a lot of things that we probably don't have to do. A lot of wasted effort. Great people. It's not a people problem or challenge. It's a system problem. And there's a visual that I'd like to show, the 4 different levels of government. It's a way of looking at it. Ken Miller came up with these. Ken Miller wrote this book, Extreme Government Makeover. And it's a book that we're using across the county to really learn these techniques. And the 4 levels are politics. Crucial part of our democracy, and a lot of our electeds come in with some pretty big ideas. Thank goodness.
And that's part of the reason why government is so slow to change, because leadership is changing.
It can be. It can be. This is my 5th large organization in helping transform. My 4th, the one with the state government, actually went faster than anyone had ever gone in private industry. So we're hoping to dispel this thought. It can be. The second level is policies. Once decisions are made by our politician, which is crucial, we have to then put policies in place. And I found both in the state and the county, we do a really good job of making policies. They're broad enough so that there's a lot of wiggle room. The challenge is now when we start introducing these into our different departments. And our systems, you can equate this to pipes. And if these ideas are water flowing, through the politics, through the policy down to the pipes. Our pipes, a lot of our processes are kinked and twisted to no fault of our staff. It's just over years of, anytime there's more than one signature, if you got to get a process approved, that's a kink in the pipe. It slows things down. So for that contractor who wants a permit in a day or 2 days and it's taking 2 weeks, when you study the process, there might be 3 or 4 signatures in there. And each one of those signatures will slow down the process. It's not the fault of the people.
So then you've got the politics,
right.
You have the policy,
right.
And it's the processes, or would you also call that the implementation?
It's the performance. How are we actually now implementing the policies? And our people, our staff, using this analogy, they live along the pipe. And sometimes these pipes are a bit twisted and kinked. But the other thing, these pipes are invisible. You don't see processes, you do see people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And this is why I'm such a proponent of using this visual management. The process of doing a permit is invisible. You see the people, but you don't always see the process, how it flows, the paper, the people, when we meet with our customer, when we get it to them. So the whole key is, how do you make that visible? In manufacturing, I had wings, I had fuselages that were visible. Service is not visible. It's mostly invisible. So yes, we're using different tactics, but we're following the same principles to assure the customers at the end of the pipe, and sometimes the service is not getting to them. When my customers at WorkSource were having to wait for an hour, they weren't getting the service they expected. Well, we ended up focusing on the pipes, and we straightened those pipes. We didn't even talk about politics. The policies were good. We just focused on our internal performance. And by going from a system where anybody could come in at any time to more regulating it and scheduling people, we eliminated waiting, drove up our quality performance, and drove up by almost 20,000 people, the number of people that came into our center, just by focusing on our processes and listening to our customer.
So how are you going to actually implement these changes across Spokane County government? Because you're talking about not only dozens of departments and agencies, but also a lot of different elected officials.
Yeah, and these folks are wonderful. They really, the department heads that I've gotten to know, they're wonderful. They provide great services, from scraps, what's going on there, to our parks and rec. Just wonderful departments. They're doing good things. My questions to my department heads are, well, how do you determine success in your organization, and how are you measuring it? A lot of times in private industry and manufacturing, my background, you were surrounded by metrics and measurements and trend data, and I had just taken it for granted. When I came to state government, not county government, I found that it wasn't as prevalent. Looking at metrics, outcomes, how are we doing what we're doing? What's the goal? What's our strategy? What are our tactics? And it wasn't as commonplace as what I had experienced in private industry. So that's some of the things that we're doing. And one of the foundations that I'm using, that I've used for about 20 years, is called the Malcolm Baldrige criteria for performance excellence. Back in 1988, President Reagan, he went out and he looked across the United States and says, what makes great organizations great? And he looked at different private industry, different companies, different nonprofits, governmental agencies, and he found 7 keys that great organizations have. The first is leadership. They got great leadership. And we've got great leadership at the county. We really do. The second, strategic planning. That's the second key characteristic. And that's one thing that I didn't see that we did as much. And as we speak, we're going through strategic planning at the county. The third, customer focus, which is right in line with lean thinking. What are the customers telling us about how we're doing what we're doing, and how do we keep improving it? And including our customers, which is the citizens of the county, in the process. The fourth, the foundation, is data, knowledge management, analysis, music to an engineer's heart. So we're collecting much more data, much more information, and analyzing it. The fifth is workforce focus. How effectively are we developing, growing our workforce? Are there succession plans? What's our training? We've got room to grow there, room to improve. Number 6, operations focus. How healthy is our operations? I was brought in as the Chief Operations Officer. And so we're developing a lot of visuals, a lot of metrics to track that. And the 7th is results. Do you know your results? So this is the foundation, this is the framework that what we've done at both private industry, state government, now county government, this is the framework that we're following. The other thing that we're doing is I'm doing a lot of teaching. I'm doing a lot of leadership, lean leadership teaching, because just because I might understand this concept and have been doing it for years, that doesn't mean that everybody else does. And we're going to be applying it very differently at the county than we did at the state than we did at Boeing. And so I've taken 16 people at a time. It's a 4-week course. You've been through it. Just to teach the basic principles and then enable you to practice with your group during this course some of these principles. And the results that even during the course that I've been seeing have been spectacular. So everything's really going well. I'll have about 102 graduates by the end of February across our 1900. So we're really making great progress. I'm really excited about where we're at.
Okay, now, John, I want to take you back to something that you mentioned, and that was strategic planning.
Yeah.
So what is the plan for this year?
Well, we started this process in October, and we met with the department heads and the different elected officials across the county. And we asked one simple question. What do we have to do in 2014 to become a higher performing organization? And through about an hour and a half, we came up with 3 things that were really evident. The first was employee development, succession planning. We have to do a better job growing, our staff and enabling them to grow. The second was public engagement, public access, getting the public, who is our customers, our paying customers, more of an ability to work with us, to provide feedback, to be part of our improvement activities. The third was customer service. How do we keep improving our service to our customers? Then in the November and December and into January timeframes, working with our Board of County Commissioners, who are wonderful. They're supporting this. They've been great to work with. We came up with a strategic plan. The first thing we did, and the one thing with this focus on visuals, was how do we make our strategic plan visual?
Yes.
Right? Most strategic plans, unfortunately, they can be an activity we do once a year, dust off it once. So we start with our mission. Mission is the foundation, and our board updated and enhanced our existing mission. Built on top of that is our core values. We came up with 8 core values across our county. And what I'm going to be doing more and more with my department heads in that is talking about visionary leadership, continuous improvement, results-oriented was another. The next focus was, okay, what are our key objectives for 2014? And from our October meeting, 3 of those 4 became our key objectives, the others now being financial stewardship. How do we do that well? And we set a vision. Where are we going? What's that light in the fog? And we're going to be the state's flagship government agency, in a couple of years, and we've got plans for that.
So what are some of the successes to date?
Well, I'm very proud. I mean, as we run these different things, we use a lot of visual management in daily. One thing I like when you go through this class is you as a leader in that class, you go back to your organization and you pick an opportunity to learn something, to fix something, and back that up with daily huddles. So we put these problem-solving storyboards up, and a lot of teams have done some great things. And to answer your question, in our utilities division, our director was there, and just during the course, over about a 3-week time frame, by 50% of the time we reduced the time it took to complete sewer connection reports. 50%.
50%?
50% savings in just 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yes. Because we saw it and we dealt with it. In our building and planning department, we reduced by 65. We saw 65% cost savings by doing a lot of the code amendment work in-house. Used to be done out-of-house every 3 years. That was great. Our treasurer's office, who had been doing this before I even showed up, but by going to more and more electronic, our cash receipting has gone down by 80 to 90%, which is saving all kinds of capacity. Our facilities department, in working with different organizations, have gone to a visual workboard, and they've drastically reduced their amount of later lost work. And scraps, which we're very proud of, which is now a regional.
Yes.
They looked at their intake process. They realized that they were, at the same time they were bringing in animals, in the same line, the same people were asked to stand in line who were looking to get an animal. So they did a different triage process and eliminated waiting there also. So these are just some of the results to date already that we've seen. It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's also very impressive considering you haven't, implemented lean management principles that long ago. So 2014, what are your projections for the year?
Very exciting. And I do want to make a point. our county, the state have been doing lean. This term lean was coined in 1990 about. Our county has been doing it for decades and decades. It's just the latest term for continuous improvement. All I'm trying to do is enable my department heads to enable the frontline staff to, at a more rapid pace, implement these improvements and to know that I got their back. When you do things differently or new, I call it stumble. You're going to stumble some, and it's okay. I'm just letting my department heads know it's okay. Don't break any laws. Make sure your team understands what the laws are. But when you do something different, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be. It's okay. And we're also providing an intranet site that folks are going to be able to brag across the county about their great successes, which they're already doing.
Which basically means that the public can expect more great news coming out of Spokane County.
Not only more great news, but also more involvement. We're going to be engaging with our public more and more in these things because the public's a customer. So they are speaking. We want to hear you more, and we'll include you in a lot of the continuous improvement activities. And
it always comes back to the public.
It does. It's the customer.
And this has been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much, John Dickson, Chief Operations Officer for Spokane County, providing more insight about lean management and how you're implementing it in Spokane County. And I'm Martha Lou Wheatley-Billeter. Thank you for joining both of us for Spokane County Spotlight.